What if trying to be a good person is the very thing keeping you weak, exploited, and predictable? For years, you've been taught to suppress your darker impulses, your anger, your ambition, your cold clarity. But here's what nobody tells you. There's a historical figure who weaponized his shadow so effectively. His enemies never saw it coming. I'll reveal who in next few minutes. The strongest people in history didn't reject their dark side. They integrated it using a specific process. And at minute 32, I'm going to walk you through the exact 7 drills they used to the same patterns I influence individuals, still used today without ever naming them. But here's the part that changes everything. There's one shadow trait that separates people who get manipulated from people who become untouchable. Most people suppress this trait their entire lives. I'll show you how to identify yours in the next 8 minutes. This isn't the shadow work you've heard before. No journaling prompts. This is about building internal sovereignty that makes you immune to manipulation. If you've ever felt like you're playing by the rules while others bend them, if you're tired of being overlooked, then by the end of this video, you'll understand why the version of you that gets used and underestimated is about to disappear. This is about achieving a level of self-mastery so profound, so complete, that it makes you impossible to control. You're going to learn 7 specific exercises to integrate your shadow, and in doing so, you'll become the one thing a manipulator cannot stand. Section 1. What is the shadow, and why you've been lied to about power? Before we get to the exercises, we need to understand the battlefield, and that battlefield is your own mind. On that field is a hidden force you've been trained your entire life to ignore, to fear, and to fight. This is what the psychiatrist Carl Jung called the shadow. Simply put, the shadow is everything about yourself that you aren't aware of. It's the collection of all the traits, impulses, desires, and emotions you've repressed and disowned. Think of your mind like a house. Your conscious self is the brightly lit living room where you entertain guests. It's the part of you that you show the world, your persona, your social mask. It's polite, well-behaved, and agreeable. But every house has a basement. And into the basement of your psyche, you've thrown everything you deemed unacceptable. Your rage, your envy, your greed, your lust, your fierce ambition. But it's not just the dark things. You've also tossed down your uninhibited joy, your wild creativity, your unapologetic assertiveness, your raw, untamed potential. Why? Because at some point, someone, a parent, a teacher, society itself, told you those things were bad. Don't be angry. Don't be selfish. Don't show off. Don't be so loud. So, to survive, to fit in, to be loved, you took these essential parts of yourself and locked them in the dark. And here's the biggest lie we've been sold: that this repression makes us good people. It does. It makes us fragmented. It makes us weak. Jung had an idea that has been famously paraphrased this way: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The shadow you ignore doesn't go away. It festers in the dark. It runs your life from behind the scenes, showing up as self-sabotage, sudden anxiety, depression, or those moments where you react with an emotion that shocks even you. It's the reason you procrastinate on your biggest goals. It's the reason you end up in the same toxic relationships. The parts of you that you refuse to own end up owning you. This is where we have to redefine power. The common view of power, the Machiavellian stereotype, is about manipulation, about pulling strings and controlling others. But this is a fragile, external power. It depends on other people. True, lasting power is internal. It's the result of what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole. It's the journey of going down into the basement of your own mind, not to kill the monsters you find there, but to listen to them, understand them, and integrate them. Someone who has done this work isn't frightening because they're cruel. They're formidable because they're complete. They understand the full spectrum of human motivation, from the saintly to the savage, because they've found it all inside themselves. They can't be easily manipulated by threats of darkness, because they've already walked through their own. This is the power we are aiming for, the power of unbreakable self-mastery. And the journey begins right now. Section 2. The 7 exercises. Exercise 1. The Villain's Motive Journal. Our first exercise tackles one of the shadow's favorite defense mechanisms: projection. Projection is when we take a trait we can't accept in ourselves, and we see it, with blinding clarity and intense judgment, in someone else. As Jung noted, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The people who trigger you the most, whether with rage, disgust, or even obsessive admiration, are messengers from your shadow. Here's what you're going to do. First, pick a person who gets a strong negative reaction out of you. This could be a public figure, a movie villain, or that one colleague you find insufferably arrogant. The stronger the emotional charge, the better. Second, open a journal. For the next 15 minutes, you're going to write from their perspective. Don't write them as a caricature of evil. Write as if they are the hero of their own story. Try, with genuine curiosity, to understand their motives. What do they want? What are they afraid of? What past wound might be driving their behavior? If you picked that arrogant colleague, write from a place where that arrogance is just a desperate shield for a crippling insecurity. Imagine the world through their eyes, where their actions feel not just justified, but necessary. Third, after you're done, read it back and ask yourself this brutal question: where in my own life have I acted from this same motivation, even on a much smaller scale? Where have I worn a mask of confidence to hide fear? Where have I tried to control a situation because I felt powerless? The why behind this is profound. The traits we violently reject in others are almost always the traits we've violently repressed in ourselves. If you hate weakness in other people, you've likely banished your own vulnerability to the shadow. If you can't stand arrogance, you've probably disowned your own healthy ambition. This is its link to Machiavellian power. A manipulator's primary tool is to trigger you, using your predictable emotional reactions to control you. They'll poke at your insecurities, knowing you'll get defensive. They'll play on your disowned greed, knowing you'll become envious. But when you do this exercise, you start to take back your projections. You see the arrogance in your colleague as a disowned part of your own ambition. You integrate it. The next time someone tries to use that trigger against you, there's no emotional charge. There's no hook for them to grab onto, because you've already met and made peace with that part of yourself. You go from being a puppet reacting to provocations to an observer who sees the entire game, and you can't be played by a game. You can see from a mile away. Exercise dose. The forbidden feelings audit. This next exercise targets the very foundation of the shadow: emotional repression. When we were young, we were all handed a short, unwritten list of acceptable emotions. For a lot of men, anger is okay, but sadness isn't. For a lot of women, sadness is okay, but anger isn't. Joy is fine, but not too much, or you'll seem unstable. Ambition is good, but not so much that you look greedy. We learn this hierarchy of feelings, and everything on the bottom half gets shoved into the basement. But repressed emotions don't just disappear. They repressed anger turns into passive aggression or chronic resentment. Repressed sadness becomes a lingering numbness. Repressed fear becomes overwhelming anxiety. These unfelt feelings control us from the shadows. The forbidden feelings audit is how we reclaim them. Here's the method. First, take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. On the left, list all the emotions you were taught were bad, unacceptable, or dangerous to show in your family or culture. Be brutally honest. Rage, envy, jealousy, grief, selfishness, laziness, pride. List them all. Second, in the right-hand column, write down how these emotions showed up instead. If you couldn't show anger directly, did it come out as sarcasm? Did you become a people pleaser to avoid conflict? If you couldn't just ask for attention, did you create drama so people had to notice you? Map the indirect routes your forbidden feelings took. Third, and this is the most important part, you have to give yourself permission to feel these emotions in a safe, contained way. This is not about acting them out destructively. Awareness and repression are opposites, but expression and repression are not. You don't need to punch a wall to integrate your anger. Instead, you find a private space and just allow the raw feeling of rage to move through your body. You journal about your envy without judging it. You let yourself feel the depths of your sadness without trying to fix it. The goal is to become an impartial observer of your own emotional world. This exercise builds emotional sovereignty. A person who is terrified of their own anger is hissily controlled by anyone who can provoke it. A person ashamed of their own ambition can be manipulated by anyone offering a crumb of validation. But when you've done this audit, when you've sat with your forbidden feelings, they lose their terrifying power over you. They're no longer invaders. They're just data. Your anger becomes a signal that a boundary was crossed. Your envy becomes a signpost pointing towards something you want. You become the calm ruler of your inner kingdom, able to listen to all of your advisors, even the dark ones, without being overthrown by them. A manipulator expects a knee-jerk reaction. You'll give them a considered response. And in that space, you reclaim your power. Exercise 3, the archetype integration technique. We all play a role. Most of us over-identify with a single persona, a single archetype. T. Helper, the good son, the dutiful daughter, the intellectual, the rebel. We build our entire identity around this one mask, and we get very good at playing the part. The problem is, for every archetype we consciously live out, its opposite gets thrown into the shadow. If you're always the helper, your inner sovereign, the one who sets firm boundaries and says no, is locked in the basement. If you're always the responsible one, your inner trickster, the playful, spontaneous one, is chained up. This makes you rigid, and therefore predictable. And predictability is a manipulator's playground. The archetype integration technique is designed to break that rigidity and make you psychologically flexible. Here's your mission. First, identify your dominant archetype. What role do you most naturally play in your life? What are the top 3 words people would use to describe you? Patient, intense, generous, serious? Be honest about the mask you wear most often. Second, identify its opposite. What's the archetype you've rejected? If you're the eternal peacemaker, your shadow might be the warrior, the one willing to fight for a cause. If you're the logical scholar, your shadow may be the lover, the one who lives through passion and connection. If you are the humble servant, your shadow is the king or queen, the one who knows their own worth and commands respect without apology. Third, for 1 week, you're going to consciously embody the energy of your shadow archetype. This isn't about being fake. It's about activating a dormant part of your authentic self. If your shadow is the sovereign, your mission for the week is to say no at least once a day to something that drains you. If your shadow is the warrior, your task is to speak up about one thing you believe in, even if your voice shakes. If your shadow is the trickster, you must schedule unstructured, pointless fun. You aren't trying to become this other archetype. You're just taking it for a walk and letting its energy mix into your personality. The power this gives you is immense. A person who can only be a helper will be exploited. A person who can only be a warrior will burn out. But a person who can be a helper and a sovereign, that's someone who can be both compassionate and boundaried. A scholar and a lover. That's someone who can think with clarity and feel with depth. You become psychologically ambidextrous. From a Machiavellian perspective, you become unpredictable. They expect a people pleaser, but today they meet the king who calmly states his terms. They expect the emotional artist, and instead meet the cold analysts who sees through their game. You're no longer playing one note on the piano. You're learning to play the entire keyboard. You're not being deceptive. You're being complete. And a complete person can't be pigeonholed or controlled. Exercise 4. The childhood judgment. Reversal. Much of your shadow's architecture was built in your childhood. The rules of your personal prison were written before you could even hold the pen. Every time a parent or teacher said, "Don't be so sensitive," "Don't be selfish," or "Good girls are quiet," they were handing you a brick to build your shadow's cell. These judgments weren't objective truths. They were the inherited anxieties of the adults around you. But to your child's mind, they were gospel. And as an adult, you continue to enforce these ancient laws against yourself. This exercise is about becoming the warden of your own mind, auditing those laws, and granting yourself a pardon. Here's the process. Step 1. Take out your journal and title a new page, Childhood Rules. Now, think back. What were you consistently shamed or discouraged for? What traits were you told were bad? Write down the exact phrases if you can. Don't get your hopes up. You're too much. Be seen and not heard. Don't rock the boat. Feel the page. Feel the page. These are the foundational codes of your self-repression. Step 2. Now, for each rule, you're going to conduct a reversal. Reframe the judgment into a strength. For example, don't be so sensitive becomes, my sensitivity is a superpower that makes me highly empathetic and perceptive. The command, don't be selfish, is reframed as, prioritizing my needs is essential for my well-being, and allows me to give from a full cup. Stop showing off. Becomes, confidently, sharing my talents inspires others. You're rewriting your personal law book from a place of adult wisdom, not childhood fear. Step 3. You must consciously violate one of the old rules every day. If the rule was, don't rock the boat, your task is to voice a dissenting opinion in a low-stakes meeting. If the rule was, don't get your hopes up, allow yourself to feel genuine excitement about something. You're giving your nervous system new evidence that breaking these old laws doesn't lead to catastrophe. The Machiavellian power you get from this is freedom from the need for external validation. Manipulators prey on people still running on their childhood programming. They know that if you were shamed for being too much, all they have to do is hint that you're being intense, and you'll immediately shrink to please them. They're pushing buttons that were installed in you decades ago. When you do this reversal, you deactivate the buttons. You take away the manipulator's control panel. Their attempts to shame you into compliance won't work, because you no longer believe in the law they're trying to enforce. Your sense of worth becomes internal. You become the source of your own permission, and a person who gives themselves permission is a sovereign, not a subject. A lot of people think the shadow is just this dark, scary place filled with monsters. But that's a huge misunderstanding. The shadow contains everything you've ever disowned about yourself, and that includes your most brilliant light. The Jungian analyst Robert A. Johnson had a beautiful name for this, the golden shadow. It's the gold of our highest potential that, for some reason, we decided we weren't worthy of. We cast it into the darkness right alongside our demons. Think about it. Maybe you grew up in a place where being smart was seen as arrogant, so you learned to dumb yourself down. Your brilliance went into the shadow. Or perhaps you were told that being a powerful leader wasn't feminine, so you pushed down your natural ability to take charge. That power went into the shadow. Today's first exercise is a treasure hunt. We're going to get your gold back. Here's how you find it. First, I want you to make a list of people you admire. They can be real or fictional, living or dead. Who do you have an almost irrational level of admiration for? Who makes you think, wow, I wish I could be like that? Gotcha list great. Now, for step 2. Next to each name, write down the specific qualities you admire in them, and be specific. Don't just write courageous. What kind of courage? Is it the courage to speak truth to power? The courage to be creatively authentic? The courage to be vulnerable and open? Is it their incredible self-discipline, their infectious joy, or their unshakable integrity? The more precise you are, the better. Okay, now for the most important part. Step 3. Read that list of qualities you just wrote down, and as you read it, I want you to accept a fundamental truth. The qualities you admire most in others are a direct reflection of qualities you already possess but haven't owned in yourself. You are projecting your own disowned gold onto your heroes. That profound creativity, that deep integrity, that fierce courage, it's already inside you, just lying dormant. You can only recognize a quality in the world if some version of it already exists within you. It's like a tuning fork. It resonates with something that's already there. So, your final task for this exercise is to pick one of these golden traits and find one small, manageable way to express it this week. If you admire someone's discipline, maybe commit to a small, 5-minute daily practice. If you admire creative authenticity, spend just 15 minutes on a creative project for no one else but you. The power this unleashes is authentic self-belief. So much of what we call influence or charisma isn't about learning clever tactics. It's the natural radiance of someone fully inhabiting their own potential. They don't need to dominate a room because their presence has its own gravity. By reclaiming your golden shadow, you stop outsourcing your potential to your idols and start embodying it yourself. A manipulator might seek power by making others feel smaller. You will gain a far more potent power by simply stepping into your own fullness. This kind of power doesn't need to announce itself. Eat this, felt. Now let's move on to our second exercise for today, which I call the automatic reaction interruption. Here's a hard truth. A manipulator's power over you is directly proportional to how predictable you are. If they know that a certain comment or a specific look will reliably send you into a spiral of shame, anger, or fear, they own you. They've found the strings on your back, and all they have to do is pull. These automatic, unconscious reactions are the shadow in action. These are triggers firing off before your conscious mind even has a chance to catch up. This next exercise is all about cutting those strings. It's about creating a sacred pause between a stimulus and your response, and in that tiny pause lies all your freedom. Here's the practice. First, for 1 week, I want you to become a detective of your own triggers. Carry a notebook or use a notes app on your phone. Your only job is to notice and log every time you have a disproportionate emotional reaction. Maybe a colleague criticizes you, and you feel this hot wave of shame that completely ruins your day. Or someone cuts you off in traffic, and you're filled with white-hot rage. You scroll through social media, see a post, and feel a pit of envy in your stomach. Just note it down, what up in it and what was the immediate feeling. No judgment. We're not trying to fix anything yet. Just observe the pattern. Second, once you've identified a recurring trigger, you can prepare for it. Let's say it's being criticized publicly at work. You know, it's likely to happen again at some point. Your goal for the next time it happens isn't to magically not feel the shame. That's unrealistic. The goal is simply to notice the shame as it arises, to catch it in the act. And this brings us to step 3. The moment you feel that familiar hot wave of emotion, you're going to engage in what's called a pattern interrupt. This is a simple, physical action that breaks the unconscious loop. It could be taking one deliberately slow, deep breath. It could be pressing your feet firmly into the floor and feeling the ground beneath you. It could be taking a sip of water. The action itself is less important than its purpose, which is to create a tiny 2-second gap between the trigger and your usual autopilot reaction. In that 2-second gap, you suddenly have a choice. For the first time, you're in the driver's seat. You can observe the feeling of shame without becoming the shame. You can say to yourself, "Ah, there's that shame I was expecting." Just by doing that, you've shifted from being an unconscious reactor to a conscious observer. And from that place, you can choose your response. Do you really need to lash out? Do you need to crumble? Or can you just acknowledge the feeling, breathe, and carry on with your day? This is the very definition of self-mastery. Even Machiavelli stressed the importance of being cool-headed and not letting passion cloud your judgment. Your emotional triggers are like personal crises. By learning to interrupt them, you become A manipulator throws a dart at you, expecting you to scream in pain, but instead, the dart just clatters to the floor. You saw it coming, and you chose not to react. This is incredibly infuriating for someone who relies on creating emotional chaos to gain control. You become an island of calm in the storm they're trying to create. And believe me, there is nothing more powerful than a person who cannot be emotionally provoked. Give these exercises a try this week and see what you discover. All right, we are about to dive into the final and most powerful exercise, where all of this work truly comes together. If you're starting to see just how deep this journey goes and you're finding this valuable, do me a quick favor and take a second to hit that subscribe button. We go deep on topics just like this every single week. and I would love for you to be a part of our community. Okay, let's bring it all home. This is Exercise 7, the Sovereign Declaration Manifesto. All the previous exercises were about excavation, digging into your shadow to see what's really hidden there. This final exercise is all about construction. After discovering all those conflicting parts of yourself, the villain, the hero, the monster, and the saint, it's finally time to build a unified kingdom. It's time to write the constitution for your newly integrated self. This is your Sovereign Declaration Manifesto. Think about it. A Machiavellian prince's power came from a singular, unwavering vision for his state. Your power will come from an unwavering commitment to your whole, authentic self. This manifesto is that commitment, written down in ink. Now, this should only be done after you've spent some real time with the other 6 exercises. Think of this as the culminating act. So, here's how you forge your declaration. Step 1. Find a quiet space where you will not be disturbed. Treat this as a sacred act. Get a fresh notebook, something that feels significant to you. On the very first page, write your title, The Sovereign Manifesto of ... Double quotes, and then your name. Step 2. Now, you're going to write the founding principles of your inner state. This manifesto should have a few key sections. First up, your core values. Based on everything you've learned about yourself, what truly, deeply matters to you. Is it integrity? Freedom? Compassion? Maybe it's growth or security. List your top 5, and for each one, write a single sentence explaining what it means to you. These are the pillars of your kingdom. Step 3 is defining your non-negotiable boundaries. These are the laws of your land, and you need to be crystal clear. For example, I will no longer entertain relationships that require me to shrink myself. Or, my time and energy are my most precious resources. I will not give them to people or activities that consistently drain them without reciprocity. Another powerful one could be, I will not tolerate disrespect or when I encounter it, I will address it directly or I will walk away. These are the walls of your city. Step 4. The final section is your declaration of self-acceptance. This is where you officially bring the shadow into the light. Write statements that acknowledge and integrate the parts of you that you've uncovered. For example, I accept my anger as a guardian of my boundaries. I will listen to it with respect. Or, I accept my ambition as the engine of my growth, and I will give it healthy fuel. How about, I accept my need for rest as a vital counterbalance to my drive. And maybe the most important one, I accept the part of me that is capable of darkness, as understanding it allows me to consciously choose the light. Once this is written, don't just file it away. Read it once a week, maybe on a Sunday evening, to remind yourself of the terms of your own sovereignty. This is the ultimate expression of Machiavellian power, but turned inward. You become the prince of your own psyche. You've established your laws, you've fortified your walls, and you've unified the warring factions that used to exist within you. When you are this clear on who you are and where your lines are drawn, any attempts at manipulation become laughably transparent. Someone asks you to do something that violates a clause in your manifesto. The answer is a calm, simple no. There's no guilt, no agonizing. It is simply against the law of your land. You don't need to play games, because you've already defined the rules of your own existence. This, my friends, is true power. Not the power to control others, but the power to govern yourself with absolute clarity. Thank you for taking this journey with me. So, let's bring it all together. What have we actually accomplished today? We've walked through 7 powerful exercises designed to fundamentally change your relationship with yourself. We started with the villain's motive journal, to reclaim the parts of yourself you project onto others. We moved to the forbidden feelings audit to regain sovereignty over your own emotional landscape. Then, we explored the archetype integration technique for greater psychological flexibility. We dove deep with the childhood judgment reversal to break free from outdated programming. We reached for the stars with the golden shadow inventory to reclaim your highest, often disowned, potential. We learned to become untriggerable with the automatic reaction interruption. And finally, we laid the foundation for a new you with the Sovereign Declaration Manifesto, the constitution of your integrated self. Now, let's talk about power. The promise of Machiavellian power, the idea of controlling others, bending the world to your will. It's incredibly seductive. It's what most people think of when they hear the word power. But here's the secret they don't tell you. It's a trap. It's a fool's game. The moment you seek to control others, you become a slave. You're chained to their reactions. You're constantly seeking their approval or fearing their defiance. Your emotional state is no longer your own. It's dictated by the whims of those you're trying to manipulate. It's a fragile, exhausting, and ultimately weak position to be in. The true master's game, the one that leads to unshakable influence and genuine power, is the game of self-integration. It's an internal game, not an external one. That ruthless, strategic mind of the Machiavel, the one capable of deep analysis and unflinching action, it was never meant to be aimed outward at the world. Its true purpose is to be aimed inward at the chaotic, ungoverned, and often terrifying territory of your own psyche. That is, the kingdom you must first conquer. When you integrate your shadow, you become formidable. Not because you become cruel or manipulative or power-hungry in the traditional sense. You become formidable because you become complete. You stop lying to yourself. You stop pretending you don't have dark thoughts, forbidding desires, or a capacity for aggression. And because you are no longer lying to yourself, you become incredibly difficult for others to lie to. Your BS detector becomes exquisitely tuned. Because you are no longer afraid of your own darkness, the darkness in others loses its power over you. You can look at someone's anger, their envy, their manipulation, and you don't flinch. You don't get triggered. You see it for what it is, a part of the human experience, a part of their own unintegrated self. You can engage with it from a place of solid ground, not from a place of fear or reactivity. This process develops something I call ruthless compassion. It's not the soft, people-pleasing niceness that so often masquerades as kindness. That kind of kindness often comes from a place of the need to be liked, the need to avoid conflict. Ruthless compassion is different. It's the ability to be genuinely kind and empathetic from a position of unshakable strength. It's the capacity to set firm boundaries, to speak hard truths, and to act in the best long-term interest of yourself and others, even if it's uncomfortable in the moment. It's compassion, but it's not afraid to have a spine. This is the core of the work. You have to stop trying to be a good person. The quest to be good is often a cage we build for ourselves, forcing us to deny huge parts of who we are. It's a performance. The far more important, far more powerful work is to become a whole person. A whole person acknowledges their light and their shadow. A whole person can be both compassionate and fierce, both loving and formidable. That is where your true power lies, not in controlling boardrooms or manipulating social circles, but in the unwavering command of your own inner world. The world doesn't need another good person performing for approval. It desperately needs more whole people, operating from a place of deep self-knowledge and integrated strength. So, I invite you to stop settling for a fractured version of yourself. Stop living in fear of your own shadow. Start integrating. I know this journey is one of the most difficult you can possibly undertake. It's also, without a doubt, the most rewarding. To help you get started on a solid footing, I've created a free PDF resource for you. It's called the Shadow Work Starter Kit. It contains detailed prompts and instructions for all 7 of the exercises we've covered today, so you can begin this work in a structured, guided way instead of just fumbling around in the dark. The link is right at the top of the description below this video. Go click on it. It's completely free. No strings attached. Consider it my contribution to your rise, my investment in your journey toward wholeness. And finally, before you go, I want to hear from you. This isn't a one-way street. In the comments section, let me know which of these 7 exercises resonated with you the most, which one felt like it was speaking directly to you, and which one are you going to try first. I read every single comment, and I mean that The community we've built here is one of the best on the entire platform for this kind of deep, transformative work. And your experience adds value to everyone else's journey. You've just seen the truth. Your shadow isn't your enemy. It's your unused power source. And now the real test begins. Because awareness is nothing without application. You're ready to stop living as a fragmented version of yourself. If you're done being predictable, manipulable, and restrained by outdated ideas of being good, then your next step is simple. Subscribe if you want more videos like this content that doesn't sugarcoat the psychology of influence.